anybody has a question for Alan based on what he's been saying? You, Richard, Romola.
I'll let Ramona go first.
I don't have a question so much as when I listen to him, I hear him saying that really what the government needs to do in terms of a suggestion is actually do some research of the humankind. Actually, try to get an understanding of what resources, in terms of human resources, are available to them in the diaspora, for example, and actually choose to tap into the skill set that's there. And I think that's one part of it. The other part of it would be also like working with the mindset of Guyanese themselves, who are, it's understandable they've been in Guyana all this time, and it's understandable that they will view people in the diaspora a bit differently because they're not there, and they're not necessarily, or they have not necessarily gone through the same types of experiences. But there's a way, I think, through communication conversations to try to bridge that gap. But there would have to be value placed on that whole process by the government, and them seeing the value in trying to work with the diaspora, because I think that is important. There are tons of Guyanese who are very skilled at what they do and bring lots of different skill sets that could be valuable to a country that's developing, if it understands how to harness it and how to introduce it into the country where a lot of people might have some negative feelings towards them.
You know what is interesting about this conversation is that I thought after three series, 3 parts, we've had a lot of discussion about the dynamic between the two communities, the one country, two communities. And I was thinking, well, maybe we could sort of dilute this discussion a little bit and move more towards solutions, towards ideas, what we can do. But it seems as though it keeps coming up. There is this tension there. There is this suspicion there. So how do we foster solidarity when there's so much tension between the two communities? Malcolm, Joy, hold on, Richard. Let me bring Malcolm in on this conversation. Malcolm, welcome. Can you hear me?
Yes, I'm ready.
Welcome, Malcolm.
Thank you.
Did you hear my question?
Yes, I hear your question, But, when you guys talk about the 2 different races, how about me? I'm Guyanese.
Not races, communities. The diaspora and the community at home. Not races. The 2 communities. How do we foster solidarity? Because what was happening, Malcolm, what I said before, was happening, there seemed to be this suspicion and tension between the 2 communities. Yeah. We need each other to move this country forward. And so I just heard Alan spoke for a little bit on some of these issues, some of these tensions and suspicions. I've heard people on this same program spoke about it, and I thought maybe we could focus less on that and focus more on how we can move the country forward in terms of real solutions and ideas. But it's like sweeping the dust under the rug. So the question I have for you, how can we build solidarity if there exists this tension between the 2 communities, Malcolm?
Well, you see, I wanted to comment on the diaspora in the Toronto area.
Uh-huh.
And I tell you, there's deep divide here, even among Guyanese, a distrust between not only the Guyanese here in Canada and Guyana, but the Guyanese here itself. And that distrust has gone through generations. And the only way I think it could be done is through education. And from what I've been seeing, some of the people who have been getting posts in Guyana at this time under the new administration may or may not have all the experience. And that is a problem. We need a third party. I believe they should have a third party or a group or a committee, what you want to call it, who will go through these different, prerequisites that the Guyana wants and then try to get it from anywhere in the world, because they are Guyanese who are qualified to take these positions.
Well, last week the Minister of Telecommunication, Honorable Catherine Hughes, said that there is such a body being set up or about to be implemented that will deal with the diaspora, will deal with people who are looking to make some kind of a contribution or so on and so forth. Would that be adequate to you, Malcolm?
Well, I'll tell you, I only can speak for what they have in Toronto here. The four people who they have selected to represent the coalition now and advisors to the ministers on trade, I can say, maybe I'm a little biased, but I can say they're definitely not qualified.
Okay.
And not only that they're not qualified, over the years, business people are not going to go to them. Simple as that.
So how do
That's
we
an issue.
how do we solve that?
They have to solve that because in each one of our diaspora community, we have so-called leaders or people who are known within the community. I mean, the problem we have here in Toronto, only when the ministers them show up, you see these people. Other than that, you don't see them.
So
And that's a problem.
So Malcolm, if you were asked to make a contribution, or if you had to make a contribution in any capacity, entrepreneurship, whatever, advice, what would you attach yourself to? What would be your contribution?
My contribution, I have been in the real estate business for over 28 years. And on that basis, I will only hold myself real estate matters. And that's what I will hold myself out to be, to contribute back to Guyana. I wouldn't try to do anything else. It's not fair.
Right.
Regardless, friends or no friends. I mean, I know these guys are in government now. A matter of fact, for the AFC, in 2011, I was one of the candidates. That much close I know them. But it seems after they win the election, nobody ever called me, except the Prime Minister.
So Malcolm, you are sitting on 28 years of experience, lots of knowledge, lots of access to people who are qualified in their respective fields and so on.
Right.
We are talking about a project Guyana, moving Guyana forward.
Yes.
Right? If all things are set in place, the things that you speak of and so on, what are some ideas or some solutions, practical solutions, would you recommend for Guyana?
For one, I have studied the real estate. And one of the reasons why North America is so prosperous is because after the Second World War, they built roads, they built linkages to anywhere you can think of. And I believe that's what Guyana has to do.
Infrastructure.
Once you build roads, people will come because the whole country will open. Currently, we're only using the riverland. In other words, the coastal land. We have to be going into the interior. And for some reason, the governments, both this government and the previous government, do not see the wisdom of putting good roads to open up the whole country. And that's one of the biggest things I will push for, build roads.
Is it, and I'm not advocating for the government here, I'm just asking the question, is it that they don't see the wisdom or don't you don't know whether there is that plan to be put in place?
Seven.
I think David Patterson, the Minister Patterson, have suggested of building roads. Because I believe the Lethem Road is going to be built.
Yes, there is a plan to do it.
Alan, go ahead. Sorry, Alan, you want to say something?
I don't know. It has been said before by the previous government, but nothing has been done.
No. Alan,
I would have let them not too long ago.
Malcolm, hold on. Let me get Alan in on this. You were saying something, Alan.
Yes, there is a plan to build that road from Brazil to Georgetown. They're rebuilding the Linden Highway also. There is a plan to do a bridge to Suriname. So there are great plans to link Guyana physically to those two countries, our neighbors. So there is a plan. With all due respect to Minister Patterson, he has had a lot of flack lately, but he's doing a great job with regards to roads. So he's going along to that plan the gentleman was speaking about.
Romola, you want to say something?
Along the lines of suggestions?
Yeah, well, what I'm hearing here, and Richard, you could chime in anytime you want. I'm hearing ideas that can be implemented, but I'm also hearing that maybe there isn't a proper communication network that can inform people both at home and in the diaspora of what is happening. Because here, Malcolm, a very informed and knowledgeable person, Guyanese, that didn't know that is happening, and Alan just taught us this. So, what would you suggest, Alan, in terms of communication?
I think there's a problem with regards to PR with the government. Even before they got this power, they're slightly in it, and it's still in. That's the first thing they need to look at is this for a decent PR person and bring them to this country. The government is lacking or suffering from bad PR generally. And that is a fact.
Alan, why you in camera? You are the only person here that's back in Guyana. What are you seeing that would encourage you to reach out to your friends and colleagues in the diaspora to make an investment in Guyana?
I'll tell you what, Guyana is so ripe for investment right now. The scope is so vast. And all it needs for anyone who's interested in investing in Guyana is to come to Guyana physically, look at Guyana, and I'm telling you, as a fact, anyone who's lived out of Guyana for a number of years, lived in the West, and have seen progress that those countries have made, Guyana is at the crossroads right now. Now is the time to come to invest in Guyana. There's only one place Guyana can go from here. It's up, to be precise. Even though we have an inner problem, and I'm sure simply because it's not a nice thing to say, but some of these ministers are learning on the job. That is a fact.
So that speaks to Malcolm's concern.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
He is correct. He's correct about 50% of the way.
Mm-hmm.
Well, listen, Selwyn.
Go ahead, Malcolm.
I would like to tell you at the same. That was it Adam?
Alan.
Adam. You know, I'm currently doing some renovation stuff on my building in Grove. And I have never been put through so much headache for light and water. I flew down there in February and they drank me crazy. So as much as you say it's right for development, I have the land to do it. I mean land when I mean the land, everything is there. But the time it takes for it to happen, it's so long. Very long.
That is interesting. Last Tuesday, I had the honor to have Honorable Joseph Harmon, Minister of State, on my other show, my other program, CWS Journeys. And one of the things he said is that the government is pushing to put the right infrastructure, the right systems in place to facilitate entrepreneurship. Should that happen and should that take place? Well, let me ask you this sort of question. You probably might be disappointed in the solution, but what will make you or encourage you to continue with your investments or development in Guyana, Malcolm? What do you need to see?
Listen, one thing you can ask anybody, I have never given up, and I wouldn't give up. That's for sure. So I am going back to do it, what I have to do, regardless of what.
Awesome.
You know, so for me, I have made up my mind, I will invest in Guyana. So it's not so much of me. I'm one of the die-hard ones. So I'm going back to do it. I have the properties and I will do the investment.
Richard,
Yes, a couple of things. Let's backtrack. You asked a question on the diaspora community. Why is there a rift between the two communities, if you want to put it this way? Now, because of the interest of time, I'm just going to give like a quick synopsis of this. Now, it is common, it is very common. Now, one of the things to move forward the solution is this. From a social work perspective, and I'm saying this because this is one of the things that I've studied, right? And I concur with everyone's comment. Now, what you have to do is that if you're introducing something that is new, you have to have a vision how you're going to do that. You have to educate the nation. You have to get people to buy into your vision. They see the diaspora community as individuals that left Guyana, they give up. But we did not give up. There were opportunities that were basically granted to some of us, like myself and the colleagues right here, and we took what we had to take from the skills and the education, and now we're going back. Guyana did not offer me this opportunity to get a master's degree. Now, if I have the opportunity to come back to my country, give me a vision. Let me work with your vision to create an opportunity that can bring other diaspora communities back into our country, regardless of where we're from. We're all one, not diaspora. We are all Guyanese. Yes.
I agree with you.
When we speak about development, I always hear the word development with the word infrastructure. Now let's break that down. Development does not only deal with infrastructure. There is social development. Now, I speak through the lens of a social worker because that's my craft. Everyone speaks through their lens, whether it be engineering, finance. Now, the thing is, how all of our lenses can basically come together as one lens, so we can see what is it that we need to do collectively. Now, when we talk about development, let's not forget the social part of it, the psychological, the mental, and even the spiritual part of it. Because when you go and you bring in roads, I agree we need roads. However, let's look at the other part. How's that going to affect the community that the, let's say the Amerindian communities, I'm going to be specific. How is that going to affect the Amerindian communities from a social impact perspective, from an environmental impact perspective? Now, these are the things we have to look at. Now, what I'm saying is this. If we're going to do a lot of infrastructure development, let's not forget the psychological and the social and the human impact of it. Thirdly, you mentioned something about the diaspora community, and this is something that I always have been championing and basically advocating for. The University of Guyana has an opportunity to basically tap into the resources from the diaspora community. Have they been doing that? I don't think so. Let me give you an example. Right now with the suicide epidemic in Guyana, they have an opportunity to reach out to many of the diasporas and actually seek their advice, expertise, and even link them to universities or other organizations who may be willing. Now, why is it that something like that, when we speak about communication, let's put this into the conversation. Why is it that we are not going down that path? Use technology. Use it in a way whereby we can all connect under one umbrella and focus for the one thing, one nation, one people, one destiny.
anybody wants to add a point to that?
Yes, I would like to say, I think it's Richard, am I right?
Yes, Richard.
Richard, you're so right. But again, that's what we have to do, and I totally agree with you. However, whether the government has the will to do what you're trying to say or what you're trying to recommend, it's a different story. What I would really like, that's a very good way of getting Guyana forward.
Go ahead. Romola, go ahead.
Yeah, and so from my perspective, I'm one of those people who, if I see something and it's a problem and I think it needs to be fixed, I just jump in and start doing stuff. So I do think that another aspect of this, while yes, there needs to be some direction from the government in all the ways that have been mentioned already by the gentleman on the program. I also think that people just starting to do whatever it is that they want to do, just have a community of entrepreneurs or whatever, go to Guyana, start opening their businesses, start dealing with the issues that come up, and force the government in a way to try to respond to those issues and try to deal with them as they're coming up. That would be a suggestion for what I think could actually, something that's actionable.
I had a question here for everybody, and Richard answered that very well. Now, Richard, Malcolm, how do you see yourself in Guyana's development? And one thing Malcolm said, I don't quit. I'm going to be part of this. I'm going to do this. Is that true across the board, Alan, Romola, and Richard? That's how you feel?
For me, I'm just going to go first. It is and it isn't. I don't know yet. I would love to be a part of what is happening in Guyana and in terms of helping it to grow, but I don't know yet because there are things that I need to see, like indicators, markers, that if I'm going to go invest time and energy and money in Guyana, that there's a chance that something can come of it. A lot of the things that these guys mentioned, that the government needs to be responsive, it needs to be progressive in thinking, it needs to be inclusive, it needs to be curious, and it needs to find a way to tap into or to make doing business in Guyana more easy and more accessible to people who want to do it. And with them moving in that direction, everything doesn't have to be perfect. It never is. But with them moving in that direction, it would give me some encouragement that going there and starting to do things like that, business-like activities that I know, I won't go start a used tire business only to find out that the government is banning the importation of used tires. Like, that's crazy.
That is crazy.
Without even having a conversation about it and coming to a consensus on it, again, not expecting them to lead by consensus on every issue, but certainly on things that should be. But creating an atmosphere that is friendly to business owners and that facilitates and encourages their work instead and not necessarily put up roadblocks to it. I would need to see that in order to say, yeah, I want to jump in with 2 feet.
What? Go ahead, Alan.
I concur with the guys in this discussion in most of what has been said. I have been living in Guyana for 5.5 years. What I have always, and I continue to sing the praises of the government, they have good policies. The problem is with the implementation. So I know the president and everybody else coming down, cabinet, right across the board, are trying to make it easier for people to come into Guyana and get stuff done. That, in a nutshell, that's it. But simply because there were some silly structures that have been in place from previous governments, and realistically, there's some silly little hoops that you are asked to get involved in. Now, they've got this little entity called Go Invest. They're now trying to organize Go Invest in a way that makes it easy as a one-stop shop for you to come into Guyana, go to Go Invest, and they organize and sort all your issues. And I do understand that's not going to be an easy order. But it's always a situation, the policies are right, but the implementation has so much issues that it makes the problem look insurmountable. Just like the gentleman was saying, the electricity issue, the water issue, but they've been throwing a bunch of money at Daiwa. Now we're looking at the new board that's just taken over, GPL, they fired the CEO, the deputy, and they're looking to have qualified people in there to run these entities properly. And I do understand these things take time. So yes, we will have to bear with them for a couple more months, to be precise. But it's not that the policies are not there, it's the implementation.
This question comes to mind, and that is because last week, the second segment with Nigel Hughes and Coach of Paris, Rod Westmus and Neil Jones, we were talking about the Guyana project and how important, and Richard, I believe, mentioned something to that effect early on, having a theme, having some sort of a project, something to rally around, or it might have been you, Alan, rally around. When we were in the 70s and 80s, there was the feed, clothe, and house yourself. The real man must be I can't remember the whole thing. Small man be a real man or whatever. But what should Guyana look like in 25 years at Guyana 75? How do you envision Guyana looking at it?
You want to pick it up in the last answer? I think that's too complete.
What should Guyana, what can or should Guyana look like if we get it working, get things working the way they should, regardless of which government in place? We have the right infrastructure, right type of policy implementation, the commitment from Guyanese at home and abroad, and we have all these things going. What can or should Guyana look like in 25 years? What should Guyana 75 look like?
Kelvin?
Yes, sir.
I'm going to be good. Guyana could look like Dubai in 25 years with the oil, if and when it's pumping. And once infrastructure projects for health, we get the electricity issue sorted, we get the water issue sorted, and we could get a strong manufacturing sector going again in this country, because those are the little things that are inhibiting manufacturers. We don't have proper electricity, and the cost of the electricity is so great, it kills the product before you even start thinking from inception. So if we could get those things right, with the added finance that's coming from oil, and that's still getting flowed, Guyana could be a little bit Dubai for the whole Caribbean. Straight up. Now, we want to spend wisely.
Let's take the check with that there. One of the things that you asked earlier in the program is why Guyana is the way it is in the state. Now, and I'm hearing from my colleagues here in terms of progress and development. Let's not forget one thing. With anything that we implement or we develop, we have to do monitor and evaluation. And one of the things that is causing the social service unit to be ineffective in the past, and the challenge is basically rested upon the government right now, is the failure to do a program evaluation, to see the programs, if they're working and if what things are needed to be done. Now, here's the thing. People are going to tell me that they need more.
Richard, 30 seconds. 30 seconds. I want to read some comments from the chat room. Go ahead. Richard.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Right. So this is what I'm saying. In anything that we are trying to do collectively as one people, one nation, one destiny, let us basically do program evaluation. Bring in the experts, because it makes no sense. We're putting money into the health services or the mental health facilities, and they're not basically meeting their outcomes. I'm not an expert, but I can testify to this. Guyana needs to basically do program evaluation for the social service unit.
All right, thank you. Let me go to the chat room. Mark says, asked rather, is our constitution encourages private investment on a large scale? GT Bano said, yes, the laws and regulations allow for private investment, but doing business in Guyana is difficult. Advocate said, it is felt the Guyana government, past and present, is only interested in the financial aspect of support from the diaspora. They're not really interested in actual input from the persons who can really help. Mark, please note, we have a socialist constitution. GT Bano, absolutely correct. The emphasis is on direct investment and not on the I guess he's right saying a broader engagement of the diaspora, a fundamental flaw which has failed over the past 40 years. All right, we have 2 more minutes. What role do you feel the government should play in encouraging? All right, okay. What role do you feel the government should play in encouraging expats to contribute to the development of Guyana? Richard, 30 seconds.
One of the things that I can champion and basically put on the social media is look at the policy for tax exemptions. Now, if you bring back members of the diaspora community, right, look at the policies to see how we can basically benefit from that. Now, in the past, just including in the past, many of the diaspora communities who basically try to bring things into the country have been faced with a lot of tax, a lot of money they have to pay for the putting of their goods and commercial appliances and so forth. So let's look at that as one way. That's just one of the things I just want to, just a limited time to just say, look at the policies for us, diaspora community.
Ramona, you wanna take a stab at this?
Yeah, I think that coming from the position that the government probably has the correct policies in place, implementation and finding a way to communicate this to people in the diaspora. I live here and I can tell you, if it's only because of friends and people like you, I actually know what's going on in Guyana. There's no direct communication between there's no direct connection between anything that's going on in Guyana and me. I have to seek this information out if I want it. So finding better ways to reach people here who have an interest and want to contribute, I think would be important.
Malcolm, final word.
Yep, I didn't hear you.
Final word.
Final word is, listen, I think all of us have very good ideas, but I wish the government could be listening to us and the implementation. Pick one or two areas and let's implement it and let's get it working. But simple things as water and energy for you, the diaspora person trying to get hookup into Guyana, it is a very, very time-consuming process which have to be addressed because no development can go ahead without those utilities.
Thank you. Thank all of you. Even though we had some minor challenges in the beginning, the conversation was very informative and enlightening. Malcolm, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Selwyn, for inviting me.
You're welcome. Richard, Alan, and Ramona, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you very much for having me.
You're welcome, Alan. Good evening.
Okay.